We're here today at the Sawmill Truck and Equipment Repair in Evanston, Wyoming. Skeeter, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mr.Sowders. That's about all I know about me.
How old are
I
you?
remembered my name. How old am I? 42.
42, I didn't realise you were younger than me. When did you first start driving a truck?
1996.
1996, how old would you have been?
18.
Okay, what was the first truck you drove?
Well, a cousin of mine worked for this boom truck company in Englewood, Colorado, suburb of Denver. And I hired on over there just to sweep the floors and help out in the shop and things like that. And they had one truck that didn't require CDL. And that was a summer I turned 18, so I was still 17 at the time. And they said, well, you know, we had a guy not show up and we got jobs on the schedule. Can you drive that truck? And I lied my ass off and said, well, hell yeah, I can. And it was a 69 Ford F700.
Okay.
With a 391 propane engine.
Yep.
And a 5-speed transmission with a 2-speed rear axle.
Okay.
And so I pulled out of there, and it had wet brakes.
What's wet brakes?
No air brakes.
No air brakes.
Hydraulic brakes,
okay.
Yeah. And it was one of those ones where you had to plan your stop, and it had a vacuum booster on it, but you kind of had to pump it up a little bit to make sure you were going to stop.
Right.
Like if you thought you saw something coming, you pumped them a couple of times just to get them ready.
Right.
Then you could hit the brakes and stop. So, yeah, that was the first truck I ever drove that was bigger than a pickup.
Did you have CDL? No, you wouldn't.
No,
have
not
CDL
for that
at
one.
stage.
But then they decided that maybe I was worth training to run one of those trucks all the time, and all the other trucks had air brakes, so you had to have a Class B.
Yep.
And so I went ahead and got my permit, and the old mechanic that worked part-time over there took me up to the test range to get my test a couple of weeks later, and it was not long after I turned 18 I had my Class B.
Okay.
So.
And when did the Class A come along?
Oh, not for several years. I did that in 2005.
Okay. 2005. All right. So where did you get your CDLA? Did you train for it?
No, not necessarily. I did it up here when we moved up here to Evanston from Colorado.
And you've been here about 15, 16
Yeah, we
years?
moved here in 05.
05, okay.
Yeah, so went to work for a lady here in town that had some vacuum trucks. She had one bobtail truck is what we called it, and then we had 2 trucks that pulled a trailer.
Okay.
And decided that I better get my Class A. So, and at the time, I mean, this is before they got it all complicated, and now you have to do the training and everything else. I mean, at the time, it was just go get your permit and make the appointment for the road test and take the truck up there and
do the road. Okay, don't worry about insurance or CDL driver. Just go take a truck there and do the test.
Yeah, well, we just dropped the truck there, I think, the night before and left it there. They do it at the school bus barn.
Okay.
And it's that's where they do the backing and all that, you know, the walk around. And
but you would have had experience with tractor trailer at that stage anyway,
yeah.
So you wouldn't have needed much training.
Yeah, no, there was no training. There was,
right.
You know, there was some outlaw trucking before that. It's like, well, where we're going, there's nobody to worry about, so just grab that other truck and let's go.
And
so
run.
Sometimes that's the best training.
Yeah, in the deep end.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I worked for a guy that one of the things that he always said was, well, if we're going to have a swim team, someone's got to get wet.
Yeah, that's about right. So what was the vacuum truck job? What's a vacuum truck anyway?
It's so it'll be a tanker that's got a pump on it that can create a vacuum in the tank or pressure it up to unload or load product.
Okay.
Or water. Usually it's water.
Blow out or suck in.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of those around the oil field part of the world.
Right.
Them skinnier, you know, usually it's a painted trailer, black or white.
There's one parked out there?
Yeah, there's one parked outside.
All right.
Yep.
I'll take a picture of that before I go.
Yeah, so we just did stuff, you know, when people needed water moved out of a mud pit or something like that, we'd go haul it.
Okay.
So I'll tell you a funny story quick. This old boy I worked with, his name was Gary. It's just me and him that worked for this lady. And we were up on pulling mud out of a reserve pit off of an oil field location where they had moved the rig off of it, and they were just, it was our job to go get rid of the mud.
Okay.
And it was muddy water that had clay in it, and we were taking it from there and then distributing it to these other little ponds and retention areas on the ranch, so that when we put it in there, that clay would kind of seal that,
yep,
and then it would hold water longer.
Right.
So it was on the Deseret Ranch, which is owned by the Mormon Church. And so here we are, and Gary was an older fellow and heavy smoker, and at the time I still smoked. So we're standing at the back of our trucks just puffing on a cigarette, and here comes first here comes a U-Haul truck, and it's pulling a trailer with some porta potties on it. And I didn't say a whole lot, but I thought, well, that's a weird thing to see out in the middle of nowhere, because we really were in the middle of nowhere. It was miles from the road. And next thing you know, here come the hand carts. You get these kids and their girls in their prairie skirts and boys in their suspenders and white shirts out there with their hats and all that. And the LDS kids, what they do is they go on what they call trek.
Okay.
And so it's to give them a taste of what the pioneers did coming across the country.
Okay.
And so they'll spend several nights pushing the carts with their stuff across there.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of such a thing. I grew up in Colorado, and out here, it's, we're very close to Utah, so everybody knows what it was. So at the time I told Gary, I said, what the hell is that? And he explained it to me. He said, so those are the pioneers. I said, well, what does that make us? And old Gary puffs on that cigarette, and he says, Indians, I guess. So that's the one time I got to be an Indian.
Culture shock
Yeah.
out here a little bit.
Yep.
It's like the Amish around where we live. I had to have that all explained to me, and the horses and buggies, and that if you can't know what you don't know, or vice versa.
Yeah.
When did you start working for the oil company?
So when I worked for that lady that had the vacuum trucks, she had her fingers in a lot of pies. She had the vacuum truck business. She owned a trailer park. She owned a gas plant. And then she owned a mini storage and a ranch.
All right.
So I started, when I was working for her, part of the job was to run this small gas plant.
Okay.
And that was interesting. 4 wells coming into the plant, produced some what they call light condensate, which is a very light crude oil.
Okay.
You can get gasoline out of it, but it's not heavy enough to make diesel or grease or anything like that.
All
right. Mostly gas, a lot of salt water. And so anyway, in the course of working for her, I learned how to do all that, which that was handy for the mechanical knowledge of how that kind of a plant worked.
Right.
And then for the trucking side of things, I used to haul wastewater from a refinery east of town here.
Okay.
And so I got to know a little bit about how that worked. And we used to haul the water down to Woods Cross, is kind of between Ogden and Salt Lake. But then we got a call from a company here in town that said, hey, we need a truck to haul some product to Brighton, Colorado. And then we said, well, we don't typically do that kind of work, so if you really want us, it's going to cost you a lot more than I think you want to pay. And this old boy says, I don't care what it costs, it's got to be there.
Okay.
And that became a regular thing. I was starting to make several trips a week over there and charging them for it, because that's just the way it was. If you want our time, you've got to pay.
Yep.
And they were losing money on it. And eventually they come around and said, well, we're going to be buying some more trucks, and as soon as we hire some drivers, we're going to not use you anymore for this, just so that you know. And then they said, well, what do you think about coming over here and driving one of our trucks?
Okay.
And it had benefits and things like that. And at the time, my kids were smaller, and it's like, that's pretty important. So
yep.
I made the change, and it was about the same money, but it came with benefits, so it was worth changing over. So.
How long did you drive with them for?
I started that in, that would have been April of '07. And so I did that, working for that company. It changed hands a few times, but it was the same outfit up until 2015.
Okay. And when you were there, you wound up in the office.
I did.
What was the precursor to you being in the office?
So one of the drivers, really good guy that I was close friends with, older fella, he was in his 60s. The switch flipped, and he had a confrontation with the plant manager, our boss, and he killed him and then killed himself.
Right.
And it was kind of a bad deal. And I was on a delivery at the time when it happened. They were the only two in the building, and we had a warehouse guy that was there, but he was out back. All the other drivers were gone. And
I say he didn't try to shoot the guy in the warehouse?
No.
Okay.
No, he came in, and the warehouse guy is like, "Good morning," and he kind of grumbled at him, and the warehouse guy's like, whatever, go carry on about his business outside. And he heard shots from inside, and he's the one that called the police.
Right.
And I had left Gillette, and the driver was late for work, so I had heard from our boss. I'm pretty sure I was the last one to talk to him, because he called and says, "Hey, do you know where he's at?" And I was north of Gillette, headed for Miles City, Montana, and phone signal there spotty today. It was even worse back then, in 2008. And so I lost signal and didn't hear from anybody after that. And I thought, well, I hope they get it worked out. And by the time I got to Miles City, the company president was calling me to tell me what had happened.
Right.
And told me that he didn't know if I could get into the building, but he at least wanted me back in town as quick as I could. So I unloaded and hurried back here.
Right, and dealt with the aftermath from that.
Yeah. So what happened is the next day, of course, the crime scene people do their thing, and they come in, and then I get a call from the company president again, and he says, "Look," he says, I don't mean to sound insensitive," and he said, this is a tragedy no matter how you look at it.
No easy way
But
of saying
he said,
this.
Our customers are only going to be patient and understanding for about a day and a half, because they're multi-million-dollar corporations that have to keep things going for whatever reasons. They're investors, and the wheels have to keep moving."
Yep.
And he said, I don't want to gloss over what happened, but we need somebody to run this place. Can you do it?
Right.
And I didn't know if he meant temporarily or what. But that's when I hung up the keys for a while, was to run it, because I was the one that was there.
What year did that happen?
2008, August 21st, 2008.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of a day you don't forget.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And how long did you spend in the office running things?
From that day until sometime in June 2015, and the company changed hands a couple of times in between then.
Oh, so when you left there, you actually left the office position?
Yes.
Okay. They didn't.
Because I started out just as the plant manager there, and then when the company changed hands, some of the customers said, "Hey, we got to do things different," because the company got bought out by Weatherford, and Weatherford said, "Look, we're not buying. We're going to sell this product," but companies like Halliburton and these bigger oil field companies said, "We're not buying from our competition, so you better figure it out."
Right.
So they had to branch off our plant and one in Texas to a whole new company that wasn't affiliated, and it got sold to a gentleman from India.
Okay.
He was a hell of a good guy to work for. And anyway, when that came to be, we needed trucks to carry product. We opened a plant in Montana, one in Ohio, another one in Texas. And so I managed a fleet of 24 trucks.
Wow, okay.
At the time, and the plant there. We had probably 25 25 or 26 people working in the warehouse and the plant and the office and the lab.
Okay.
So it kept me busy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I'm glad I did it for the experience, because you learn a lot about yourself in a position like that.
Okay.
It's not even what you learn about other people, because everybody's different. People are just people when you're talking about a big group. Everybody's got this, but you learn so much about yourself in a position like that that I'm glad I did it, but I don't know if I would ever want to go back to a position like that.
Right.
It's so much simpler just being me and my truck, and I have my service truck over there if I feel like taking it out of the shop to work on something.
Right. That would have been, did you wind up taking a lot of work home, or just a little long work hours?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was nights, weekends, email constantly going off on the phone. I mean, in the early days after Herman and Don died and I was the guy running things, it was very slow after that, fortunately, because, you know, you just get pushed into the swimming pool. You got to figure it out. It was very slow that winter and throughout part of the next summer. And there were days that we'd go in the morning. There was no email on your phone. It was just check the email on the computer. Nothing's happening. We'll come back in tomorrow and check it. Right. So we'd go to work for half an hour, check the email, and then go home, or some guys go fishing or whatever, okay. You know. It was easy, and it was like, you know, the company was like, oh, whatever, it's slow. We'll guarantee you 8 hours a day.
All right.
So nobody complained.
Yep.
And it was easy. But when I was managing the place and it got real busy, I mean, it was, and I feel bad because my wife and kids suffered for it, and that's part of why I'm like, I'm glad I did it for the experience, but I wouldn't do that again.
Right.
You know, life's too short, and we took vacations and stuff, but there was always a phone call, and there was always something stupid that seemed important at the time, but in reality, it could wait.
Yeah.
So
2015, you decided to buy a truck?
I did.
Was Landstar the first jump?
Yes, okay. It was. And what I did is I had a truck that was a company truck that we were getting rid of, and my uncle bought it for next to nothing because the engine was in pieces. I mean, the turbo was laying on the sleeper floor.
Right.
So it was a basket case when he bought it. And he just needed something that he could haul hay in that was bigger than his Ford F-350.
Yep.
So he bought it, bought himself a junkyard engine, and then he wasn't using it much. And then he decided that it was too big of a hassle to have a 3-axle truck, because every time he crossed the state line, he had to have the fuel permit, and he didn't want to do that. So then he was in the market for a 2-axle, like one of them toter trucks that you see,
yep.
You know, these rodeo cowboys driving, these little single-axle trucks. And so I made a deal with him. I said, look, let me use that truck. And I said, you'll be in for 5% of everything I do.
Okay.
And when I can afford to buy you out, I will. And so that's what we did. So the first year, I just wrote him a check every month for 5% of everything I did through Landstar. Okay. But it was actually an old company truck from the company I was working for.
So you kind of knew the truck.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad truck. It was
9400 International, wasn't
International, yep, a 99 International 9400.
Okay.
Had a Detroit 370 gears and a 10-speed.
Good setup. Yeah,
not a bad truck, tall 24s.
Yep.
So it did pretty good. I sold it. I kind of wished I wouldn't have, but that's nostalgia, I suppose, because what the hell am I going to do with 2 trucks? I don't drive the one I have often enough to
justify
having a second one
sitting there.
Yeah.
Did you research Landstar before you signed on there, or knew somebody?
I did. There was a guy that worked for us. He was our plant manager in Ohio. That he had quit Landstar recently just so that he could be home more with his son, who was still in high school.
Yep.
And so he came on as a driver and became the plant manager over there, but he was telling me about it.
Okay.
And I think he actually went back to them now that his son's in college.
Right.
So.
And you pulled did you pull a Landstar step deck, or did you have your own?
No, I went and bought one.
Okay.
Yeah, I bought one in Denver, and I put a set of ramps on it. It came with some toolboxes, and I added a couple more to it. So I don't like being unprepared, which causes me to be a bit of a pack rat.
Yep.
And so I carried everything you could think of that I possibly needed. I mean, that trailer, every time I ran into a situation where I needed something, didn't have it, the next time I came home, I'd fix it up so I had it.
Right.
And there were so many things that I put in that truck and on that trailer that I never used again.
Because it only happened that once and,
Yeah.
and didn't need it again.
But by God, I had it.
Just in case.
Yeah. Yeah, I needed some V-boards one time. Didn't have them, so I came home, took some old 2-inch straps, some 1x4s, cut them up, made myself a set of V-boards.
Never used them again.
Put a rack on the side of the truck to hold them, or it was on the trailer, and it worked out good, but they never come off the trailer much.
No.
Very rare.
And I remember being at orientation, and there was a guy from Denver that was going to run a dry van, and I think the discussion was had, and it was like, what are you going to find in Denver? How are you going to get on in Denver, knowing it's terrible for outbound freight?
I had that problem here.
Okay.
And the way I always looked at it is I planned to make my money coming home, knowing that when I was going to leave, it was a long shot to find a decent load coming out of this part of the world.
Right.
I mean, they don't make anything in southwest Wyoming, and they've received very little here.
Right.
So it was usually, well, I got to cross my fingers and hope I get something out of Salt Lake or Idaho maybe.
Yep.
But it never paid very good getting out. So the idea was to get out, run around and make some money, then find something that paid good to go home on.
Come back into Wyoming, because everybody sees those loads on the board. It's like, oh, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it always made me want to change the phone number that I was using to a prefix that wasn't from here. And the reason why is because they said, well, you're just going home. No, it doesn't matter where I live. The truck doesn't give a shit where I live. The truck needs to make money.
Right.
So no, I'm not doing it for a discount.
Blocked your phone number or call it. Yeah. Yeah. How long were you with Landstar?
A couple of years. I want to say it was probably 2.5 years, 3 years.
Did you have your own authority? Did you start your own authority off while you were with Landstar or after?
I did. I applied for the number when I left the company because I wasn't 100% sure what I was going to do.
Okay.
So I got my DOT number in 2015. And
okay.
I never activated my authority. I just kind of kept it sitting out on the sideline. And so the whole time I was with Landstar, I never needed it. But then I just needed to activate it and get the insurance going to have it when I left them. And I leased on with a friend of mine first because he had a lot of work going. And Landstar wasn't bad, but I thought, well, maybe working with this guy, I can be a little bit closer to home.
Yep.
And the percentages being what they are, he'll keep a little less than Landstar was wanting to keep. Mm-hmm. And it worked out pretty good.
Okay.
And he's a decent guy, and actually he was one of the guys that did trucking for me at the company. That's where I met him.
Okay.
So he came over there and
got introduced to me.
In there. Yeah. I mean, it always makes a difference. People you meet, you never know where they're going to come into your life later on, and
yep.
It works pretty good.
Okay. Is that, and I see there's a bull, I keep pointing the wrong way, there's a bull rack out there. Is that yours?
No, that belongs to a fella that just parks here and hangs out, and I work on his truck sometimes.
So, but you haul cattle?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Whose trailers do you use?
Borrowed trailers. I could use his trailer, and my friend Scott had one for a while. He sold it to some guys in Idaho last year.
Okay.
The rates aren't as good as what they were, and it's one of them things where there's a lot of people that do that kind of work for the glory.
Yep.
And they just want to make a name for themselves, and I don't think that's the right way to do it.
Okay.
I think that if you're going to do a job like that, you need to do it right. You need to do it because you care about the livestock and you care about the lifestyle and you care about the ranchers you're hauling it for.
Right.
And there's just a lot of people that, And everybody used to kind of think that way, but the ranchers are being hit hard right now because the big meat packing companies, they have driven the prices down so far, it makes it hard for these guys to get decent prices. So they're looking to cut costs wherever they can. And there's people in the cow hauling business that capitalize on that. They say, well, I'll add extra axles to my truck and my trailer, and we'll also drop the rate.
Right.
And it's like, well, that's all fine and well, but you're wearing out your equipment.
Yep.
And all you're really doing is kind of insulting everybody else that's done this because you want to ride around looking like a big shot.
Right.
It's fun work, and I like doing it, but it's not worth losing money on. So.
That's not really the point we go in business, is it?
Yeah, hell, I always figured, I've had enough practice. I kind of want the money at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want it all. I'd like enough to retire on eventually. I don't need it all on one load.
And then there's the pneumatic tankers out there, and you're about to head off to West Texas here shortly.
Yes, I'm going to go do a little tanker trucking down in Texas.
Delivering chemicals, surfactant?
Yes, surfactant and some other stuff. I'm not even sure what it does.
Okay.
I just know that we load it, we deliver it, and we go back for another, and it's as fast as you can get her done.
And they pay.
Yes,
Yep.
They do. They understand that we've had enough practice. Well, and I think it's one of those deals that, not everybody wants to do it because people say, well, it's the oil field. It's messy, it's muddy, it's hot, it's dangerous. Well, those are the things that usually pay better.
Yes.
If everybody and their brother is doing it, then that lowers the price. I've always kind of thought the best way to make a good living doing stuff is you need to do the stuff that nobody else wants to do.
Yep.
If it's hard, if it's difficult to get into, if you have to have a bigger investment in equipment, then you probably got a better shot of making better money on that.
Yep.
Because these people that'll show up and say, well, I'm going to go haul sand in these boxes because 9 other people that I know are doing it, and they bought a Freightliner where the fenders are falling off, so I think I can do the same thing. Well, that's all fine and well until the truck breaks, and they don't have the money to pay for it, and everybody's doing it, and you see them sitting in line waiting to unload. I'll show up, and I'm the only guy that brought in what I was doing. When I was with Landstar, I felt the same way. I pulled a stretch RGN for a while.
Yep.
I was always the only guy hauling the piece that I was hauling. And these guys with the vans, you'd see them at the Landstar terminals.
With the mailbox
and they'd
numbers?
with mailbox numbers on their hood, and they'd be complaining about how there's no good loads. It's like, well, that's because there's 7 of you here pulling the same trailer, making the same complaint.
Yep.
Calling the same agent on the phone because you saw it on the board. It's like, you gotta make friends with these people and understand that you're the one fishing for work. They're not fishing for you.
No.
And you have to build relationships, and just because you bought the truck doesn't mean the work's going to come to you.
No.
And there's so many people that just thought, well, now I have the truck, now what? And you'd see them there, and then next thing you know, they'd be gone. So I just kind of figure it's better to do something that's unique.
Yep, a little bit more specialized.
Yeah.
Where did you pick up your because this is, obviously you do a lot of work on engines and equipment and pretty much everything here. Where did you pick up the mechanical knowledge, especially with
trial and error?
Oh, really?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay. Read the manual?
Sometimes, if I have to, yeah.
Call a buddy?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. My buddy Russ. Yep, our friend Russ has given me a lot of free advice. I told him the first time he helped me out, I owe him a steak, and at this point, I'm pretty sure I owe him a beef or 3.
That would be Russ at War Out. Shout out to Russ.
Yeah, good old Russ.
So how much time do you spend in the shop versus various forms of trucking?
It varies. Last year, I didn't put 10,000 miles on the truck.
Okay.
And this year it's going to be probably closer to 60 or 70,000.
All right.
So it just depends. I did a couple of engine rebuilds and did some bigger jobs for some people. For a little while I dabbled around in doing road calls.
Okay.
But honestly, there's no fun in that.
24/7 in these conditions
it's terrible.
up here.
Yeah, it's terrible, and people that generally end up in the position where they need a road call, I would say that maybe 20% of them, it's genuine emergency, something happened. But there's so many of them that just ignore stuff that could have been dealt with in a shop.
Yep.
And they wait till it's a tragedy out on the road, and then they call you and want you to go lay in the mud to deal with it.
For as cheaply as possible?
Yeah. Yeah, and road calls aren't cheap, and I've been told a handful of times that my rates were too low.
Okay.
And maybe that's why I'll never get big and rich and famous doing that kind of stuff, is because I'm like, yeah, well, I want to help people out that need help. I don't want to gouge them. And there's a lot of people in that business that want to charge as much as they can possibly get away with because they've got their market cornered. They'll charge ridiculous fees. And, I just charge by the hour. I'll leave here, go do the job, come back, whatever time that takes, this is what you pay.
Right.
And these guys will have, well, we're going to charge you a disposal fee, even though we're not throwing anything away. And there's mileage, and then there's hourly rates that are $40 higher than mine.
And then it's a weekend charge and a night charge.
Oh, and after hours charge, yeah, certainly. They do all that stuff. And it's like, well, I suppose if you can sleep at night doing that, then, rock on, brother, go ahead.
I guess there's a lineup of people that will get shafted like that, and they figure they can just keep it coming. But I never understood that, because one bad experience is going to tell 10 friends, man, I got bent over by this road service or tow company.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that, and they always say that bad news travels faster.
Yeah.
And I've heard it said that people leave a bad review, but people that have a good experience almost never leave a good review, whether it's a restaurant or any other kind of business.
I learned that early in the supermarket days.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. I think it's a good business, but it's hard to make money when you have people like that out there making it harder.
As your competition.
Yeah. I took several calls to the port of entry up here, and they have inspectors up there that don't know shit from wild honey.
Okay.
Common one that I used to get on this one inspector always used to put people out of service for excessive play in the steering.
Okay.
And so I would go up there and check it, and we're talking trucks that are only a year or two old, or trucks that are clearly well maintained, and I'd go check the free play in the steering according to what's in the green book. Everything's fine. I don't know how the inspector up there was measuring it, but I'd feel bad for these people and just say, look, I'll charge you an hour because I came up here, but I can't
there's nothing to do
change
here.
Anything. I can just sign off and say there's nothing wrong with it.
So at least you can get on down the road.
Yeah, and they were usually happy with that in spite of the situation being what it was.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, whereas other companies might, $400 or $500 just for that.
Oh,
for
yeah,
that call.
they'd come in there and
tinker around under the hood and make some noise like they're fixing something.
Yeah. Yeah, there was several calls that you get where you're just like, and some people bring in stuff that's an actual problem. Had a fella come in one time, called me at 1 o'clock in the morning. I got a transmission problem. And I'm thinking, well, maybe he just, he says, I can't seem to get the truck to go. And I thought, well, maybe he's, it's a clutch problem or something. I'm half asleep when he calls, and I meet him up here, and it sounds like someone's running a jackhammer inside the transmission. And he says, it's gotten a lot louder in the 10 minutes it took me to drive to your shop. I told him, well, buddy, I think you're going to be here for a minute because you need a transmission.
Right.
I said, well, this one's in here is only a year old. And I thought, well, yeah, I bet it is. It's got red paint on it. It's a Weller. No wonder it's coming apart.
Weller reman.
Yep. Weller reman. No wonder it's coming apart.
Yep.
I'll say this, they're responsive on their warranty, but the real bitch of it is you got to use their warranty.
Right.
There's a lot better ways to go where you don't really have to worry about the warranty because it was put together right.
Yeah.
To me, that's better. That's the better way to go.
I've had that conversation with my mechanic. He took a Weller out of my truck and went through it and rebuilt it himself. It a lot better. He said they just replace what they absolutely had to replace on a line assembly
Yes.
fashion, and you got what you got. And I guess
Yes.
the numbers work out.
And
for
even
them
if it was almost wore out, if it was technically in spec, out the door it went.
Goes.
Yep. Yeah. I always kind of figure if you're going to go through the trouble of taking something apart, there's no sense in putting it back together halfway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Fun stories from the road? Got any that spring to mind?
Well, there's stories. Some of them are fun. Maybe some of them aren't. My wife and I were in Alabama a couple of years ago. What's been, well, more than 5 years now. I think it was in 16 or 17. Anyway, we parked at a truck stop in Jasper, Alabama. Yeah. And we locked the truck up, gone in, took our shower, and come back out, had something to eat, went to eat at the Awful Waffle next door.
Oh, it's not that bad.
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll never convince her. Glorified roadkill. So we go to bed, and the dash camera caught all of this. This guy's pacing around, looking in windows of trucks, and he spots my truck where I'd taken my pants and draped them over the seat. And apparently that was the target he was looking for, because he broke the driver's side window out and snatched my pants off the seat and took off running. Yeah, cost me a pair of pants, $8, a set of keys, and my belt and a Leatherman.
I think you like the belt most of all, didn't you?
Yeah, the belt and the Leatherman case. I'm still tore up about it. Gets me mad just thinking about it. I want to go back there and bait another truck and wait in the weeds for him.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's pretty brazen too.
It is.
I'm guessing they think your wallet's
And the crazy thing is my laptop was sitting on the seat right under it, and my wallet and Teresa's wallet was sitting in the cup holder, and her purse was hanging off the armrest.
So he didn't.
But he knew exactly what he was looking for. He snatched those pants and ran.
Maybe he just needed a new pair of jeans, and he wasn't after the wallet.
You know, he was taller than me.
Yeah, that would have looked a little funny on him.
Of course, his britches was hanging off his ass in the video. You could see him struggling to run with them. So.
Fortunately, I haven't had anything like that happen to me. Do you still enjoy driving?
I do.
Okay.
I really like it. I guess they always say it gets in your blood. I don't know if I could ever quit it. I talk about it, but I haven't been in the situation where it was an option or I had the choice yet. So.
Yeah. Well, because you get annoyed with it from time to time.
Well, you do. I mean, I suppose maybe I could blame it on that. I've been told, well, maybe you've got attention deficit disorder. You can't focus on one thing. You got 9 unfinished projects going. I can go trucking for a while. I can come back in the shop. I got stuff to work on and plans of my own. I've got junk parked here that I haven't worked on that I meant to work on last year. And so maybe that's what keeps it fresh, is because I don't have to do it all the time.
Yep.
I can just park it and come turn wrenches for a while.
Right.
And when my knees get sore from walking on concrete all day, I can crawl in the truck and hit the road.
I haven't been up here for a while, but it is really nice terrain out here. When they say wide open spaces, I mean it's wide open spaces.
Oh yeah. I don't care for anything much east of I-35.
Yep, I'd agree with.
And if I go east of I-35, it's southeast, not northeast.
Right.
I can do that, but I wouldn't want to do it all the time.
Yeah, it's getting more and more congested. When was the last time you were over east of 35?
Not counting Texas, it's been quite a while. It's been a couple of years.
Okay.
But I'll get east of I-35 in Texas while I'm down there working.
Yep.
You know, go down there for 3-4 weeks at a time, come home for a month or month and a half, and go do it again.
Yep.
So that's not too bad.
Any thoughts on the industry, the way it's changed over the years? Where do you see it going?
You know, it depends on how you look at it, because I think that there is a definite need for trucks on the road, because they're putting the idea of you can get what you want wherever you want fast in everybody's mind. I mean, you think back 60, 80 years, If you wanted something that wasn't readily made in your hometown, you had to special order it or you had to make it yourself.
Yep.
And now everything you get is 2-day shipping away, or they'll freight it in from wherever. And every town has the same chain stores.
Yep.
And that's one of the things it kind of opened my eyes, because I used to see stores when I was a kid in Colorado that I just thought were unique to Colorado. And I always thought, well, it's kind of neat, you know, it's just one of the things about you'd hear the commercials on the radio, and then you come around to other parts of the country and it's like, oh, they have that here too?
Yep.
You know, hell, I thought we were unique. Well, we're really not. I mean, it's just every city's one damn carbon copy of another.
Yeah, we thought we had the only Sonic in the world.
Yeah, because of that. Well, the one I'm thinking of in my mind is a jewelry store called the Shane Company.
Yep.
Okay, when I was a kid, that was the commercial. It was Shane Company, just off I-25 on Arapahoe Road.
The Shane Company's everywhere.
And, you know, your friend in the diamond business, I still hear the commercial in my head. And then we move over here, and I hear it on the radio in Salt Lake. I'm like, oh, hell, they got one there too? Well, shit, they're all over the country. I thought it was unique. It's like, well, this is nothing special.
Right.
And that's just one example. But like I say, because of that, so everything is everywhere, and people expect that, and everything's got to be trucked from huge distribution centers. And I don't doubt that there's a need for trucking. Do I think that it's as big of a driver shortage as these big companies like to claim? No, but I don't think they're in the trucking business. I think those big companies are actually in the equipment business.
Okay,
because I don't think they're actually making as much money off of trucking as they want us all to believe they are. I think a lot of it comes from, hey, come here. You want to learn how to drive a truck? We're going to make you a business owner. We're going to put you in a truck, and you're going to get rich, and you're going to take care of your family, and you're going to do well, and it's going to be prosperous.
Yep.
And then half these people, they don't know shit from wild honey when it comes to a truck, because they're used to driving their Honda around, and they give them 3 weeks of training, and because they've bought off the right people in the government to say, yeah, we're certified training, we can mint driver's licenses as long as we're in existence, because we're big, and no one's going to stop us because we paid off the right people.
Yep.
And I think that's what happens. So they get all these people, and there's the reason they got 105% turnover is because what they're selling isn't actually what they're delivering. And so I think that's what they do, is they get these trucks that they get from the dealer, or they don't even get it from the dealer. I guess they probably get it right from the factory. They bypass the dealer. They buy thousands of trucks all in a bunch.
Yep.
And they dab a little chrome on there and some stickers on the side and say, see, this is unique. It's your business. But these poor people get in this truck, and then they say, well, okay, it's my truck and it's my business, but I've got to beg the company permission to stop for fuel where they tell me I can stop. And I've got to beg them for permission to get something fixed on the truck that's broken, even though they're taking my money to put in an account to hold for maintenance.
Yep.
They don't get to make any of their own decisions. They just, it's a glorified company job on a 1099. They're just, it's taking money out of one pocket and putting it in the other and telling them that they gave them something.
Right.
And when really they didn't. And I think it sucks because a lot of people get a jaded view of the industry that way. I think that if it was the old days, you know, I think a lot of us started out looking up to somebody that was a truck driver.
Yep.
And I think that's the way to do it, because you see these guys that did it the old-fashioned way actually made a name for themselves. There's guys that are in the business that people would see the truck and recognize, even if it was a company that had a lot of trucks. Everybody knew who Montfort was out of Colorado. Everybody knew who they were. You know, the left lane is still called the Montfort lane to the old hands.
Right.
And you know, these new companies, they just crank people out, and they figure, oh hell, if we mint 1,000 of them through here and keep 20 of them, we're doing okay.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll keep 20, and there's all kinds of different scams. But I think whether they say, well, we'll give you the training for free, you stay here for a year, or they make them pay for it if they quit.
Yeah.
You know, and so then these people quit. This is where I say they're in the equipment business, not trucking. It's because these people will get tired of it, and they'll say, this isn't what I thought it was. I'm not actually making any money. I'm going to go home. And so they quit, they abandoned whatever contract they probably didn't even read before they signed it.
Lease purchase agreement, you mean?
Yep.
Yep.
And the company will take that same truck that they already made money off of based on this person driving it for 6 or 7 months.
Yep.
And they'll take that same truck and sell it to the next fool that walks through the door that has no idea what he's getting into.
Here's a lightly used 100,000 mile
Yeah, here's a gently used truck, and
Yep.
we're going to make you a business owner, and that truck pays for itself time and time again.
Take the old stickers off and put
Yeah.
some new stickers
Hell
on
yeah,
the side.
we'll put your name on the door. You'll be somebody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you remember when that? I don't remember when that business model started.
I don't know. Probably before my time in the business.
Okay.
I just, I'll be honest with you, I probably worked with blinders on for a long time, just so focused on what I was doing that
Yep.
I don't know if I paid a hell of a lot of attention to over-the-road trucking until I was involved in it with Landstar.
I would
And
say
then I get on the road and I'm looking around at everything that's going on and I go, oh, okay, I've heard about this before. People have talked about this.
Yep.
And it's, you know, it's good perspective to have. I can't say I like what I see, though. The industry is not set up in a way that favors the small businessman, a guy with 1, 2, or 10 trucks. It's, you know, and they're trying to change it now where they can say, well, we're going to get people that are 18 to drive the trucks. And it's like, well, I'm not a big fan of regulation in general, but, you know, you're not going to let them go out and drive a truck and think that they're not going to tip one over more often than the guy that was 23 that's doing it.
Yeah.
It's like these are kids that have just been, you know, driving, you know, dad's hand-me-down pickup for 2 years.
Yeah,
you're gonna put him in
five years makes a lot of maturity difference.
It does,
that
yeah.
Stage in life.
It does, but these people that are in these big companies don't have to worry about it because they are self-insured. They don't answer to an insurance company. You and I, as a small business guy, we have to say, well, can I hire this guy? If I was crazy enough to want to hire a driver, I'd have to go to him and say, here's his driver's license number, here's his record. You let me know if I'm allowed to hire him
or not.
based on your perception of his risk.
Right.
And those big companies don't have to do that because they're so big and bloated and self-funded. They could just, oh, we're self-insured. We'll hire whoever we want.
They just call a tipped-over truck a cost of doing business.
Yeah, it is. It's a cost of doing business, and whatever lawsuit comes with it, I'm sure they have a budget for that.
Yep.
And the budget for a lawsuit is something I don't ever want to have to worry about.
No. Yeah, it still scares me every day, the possibility of something going wrong.
Yeah.
And that happening.
Yeah, well, they put them in these, you know, the other thing I dislike about where big trucking has screwed things up is they've made it seem like it's normal to put stuff on the truck like this automatic braking.
Yes.
And that's one I have a big problem with. And I live up here in the frozen country where it's winter 9 months out of the year. And you know as well as I do, if you put the binders on ice, that's the quickest way to fold one up.
Yep.
And those systems don't account for that. And I think that between hiring people that don't have the aptitude for the job in the first place, combined with ridiculous so-called safety systems like that, are the reason why we see so many accidents in the winter that shut the road for 2 or 3 days at a time.
Right.
Because you didn't used to see that. The weather's not getting worse than it was.
No.
The weather's the same as it's been for decades. And sure, it changes from one season to the next, but by and large, it's the same as it always was.
Yet these pile-ups are getting worse and worse every year.
The wrecks are getting worse, and you see people, and of course you'll get these people who say, well, if everybody had a CB, it's like, no, I'm sure that would help, but that's not the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is you got people that don't have the aptitude for the job.
Yep.
That are doing the job because they were told they could get rich doing it. And they said, don't worry, we put safety equipment on the truck for you. And I don't think that actually helps anybody.
No.
I think it puts a lot of trucks in the ditch.
Even the automatic transmission, there was a guy with one company where they locked out the ability for the drivers to put it in manual mode. So the truck would make its own decisions, and he said that it would make some very odd decisions on what gear it wanted to be in, and same thing on icy roads or slippery conditions. I don't want that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and then the other thing is, I mean, there was a hell of a big ice storm last time I was in Texas. Pretty much shut everything down for 2.5 days.
Last February?
No, this just a couple of months ago.
Okay.
January. And you know, I look at it as the biggest decisions you got to make in this business are managing risk. It's like, well, and so all of us that are down there doing this, we had to tell the customer, look, this is crappy weather. We don't see any reason why we need to be out in it, so don't load us for the next 2 days. And when the weather clears and the road's open, we'll be ready to go.
Right.
And of course they understand that because, you know, they trust us to do the job we're doing. You know, these big companies don't do that. They just say, well, you got to get there. They got some dispatcher who's never been in a truck.
Telling them they got to go.
Who's got pressure because he's got some algorithm on the computer that he's on that tracks how many drivers he's got under him that are delivering on time, and so he doesn't want his money to be affected or to get his ass chewed. So he's putting pressure on these people to do things that are dangerous because they're all in a hurry.
Yep.
And we'll go down there in a situation like this where we're just dealing with people every day that we know well, and we say, hey, the weather's going to get bad. Let's make a decision to stock everybody up beforehand so that we don't have to be on the road when the weather sucks.
Right.
And that's what we did. But, you know, when you're dealing with 15 or 20 of us that are in a group of drivers that are servicing a customer, like, that's easy to do. What do you do when you got 10,000 trucks on the road?
Yeah.
How do you do that? You know, and that's one of the things I always kind of, going back to when I worked for the company, one of the reasons why I left there is because it was getting too big for my taste. And when it started, I think there was 11 of us. When I left there, there was close to 300 people working there. And the problem with that is, for the first few years, we were damn good at what we did. We were the best in the business, and people told us that. But when it got big and they decided, hey, we're pretty good at that, maybe we can try this other line of business. Let's add this to our product line. Let's start renting some equipment on site too. And let's do this and let's do that. Well, so now you're diverting our focus among 8 different things. How the hell are we going to be the best if we got to do all of this?
Right.
And that's where they lost my interest right there.
Yep.
I would much rather be the best at doing something small than try to be the biggest and be mediocre at it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying I'm the best at what I do, but I'm proud of the work that I do. I even screw up sometimes, but I take the time where I can make it right, I can learn from it, and I'm not trying to gloss over it and say, yeah, but we got all these other things we're doing too. I mean, hell, that'd be like trying to, you know,
poor excuse.
Run a carnival out back too. Well, yeah, I may have screwed up putting a transmission in your truck, but we got a cotton candy machine outside. I mean, hell, you ought to try that. It's pretty good.
Go ride the ponies a while.
Yeah,
you'll love it.
Go ride the Ferris wheel while I fix what I dicked up.
That's funny. Well, anything else you want to throw in the mix?
Well, hell, all I've done is ramble on for a while. I don't know if there's anything else I could add.
That's about all we do for these videos is we sit down and ramble on.
We just ramble on.
Say hi to Russ and say hi to Dave Zimmerman, and I don't know. Hope everyone does well. Hope somebody learns something out of this, or at least wasted an hour.
Yeah, hell, we gave you something to kill time with.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll use it in place of stuff like waterboarding. We can't torture you with that anymore, but by God, you can sit and watch this video.
We're going to put it on loop for 24 hours.
Yeah, there you go.
Put matchsticks in your eyes. Well, thanks very much for taking the time, Skeeter.
Thank you.
And let's see if did I press the record button? Oh no.